No, I would definitely agree with that for the most part. I think my own interest again is transferring value between chains, but the ecosystem is very fragmented. There's some very hard and interesting technical challenges in bringing together systems that are so fundamentally different, designed at different times, that have very little commonality and have no base, no what I call common structure to use to pull them together, and yet they all provide various interesting features and things that we'd like to be able to use together. I mean, that's an interesting challenge and one worth pursuing.
Yeah, so we have been working on a protocol to allow people to precisely convert any different tokens. And so far we have been working okay on Ethereum, but I mean everyone knows that like currently most of the liquidity is on Bitcoin and a few other major coins as well. So it's important for us to bring Bitcoin and other major coins to Ethereum as well.
So I guess I heard some in that answer. Basically, the tech is really hard to work on and interesting. It's cool and liquidity around chains, basically. Okay. So there are a lot of different approaches to cross-chaining all the things. I guess this is the trade-offs question, right? Like, which ones have you picked for the project that you're working on? And how did you get there between the trade-offs and other things, besides the fact that, atomic swaps all suck?
I guess you can start first. So previously, before I started Kyber, we worked on Peace Relay. The idea is to bridge between Ethereum Classic and Ethereum, right? So that's what we call Peace Relay.
They had an update in the last couple of days, right? Do you still work on that, or?
So our team still maintain it. We just haven't really deploy it on the mainnet, but we could relay Rockstand Ether to Kovan network. Just last week. It is a bit expensive to maintain the thing, but it works. And for Bitcoin, we realized that most of the solutions, there will be some. Okay, so the idea for us is we want to work with Bitcoin on Ethereum, just like we work with Ether, right? So that's why atomic swap didn't work for us. And any other solution may require some trust assumption. Like if we have a federation, then we may need to trust all the members of that federation. So that's why we decided okay, let's just work with regulated custodians and ask them to keep the Bitcoin and then issue the corresponding ETH token that represent the Bitcoin. And in the future, we can think of solutions to decentralize the custodians, maybe like a 3 or 4, more than that, to secure the Bitcoin wallet. So that's the two main approaches that have been involved so far.
So I'm lucky in that the first version of Neutral just runs on Ethereum. I don't have to worry so much about the cross-chain implementation, although that's something we've been working on because things get particularly more interesting once you can start to aggregate across chains. You can build much more complicated and interesting financial products. So that's kind of why we can spend time on it. I think that if time to market is concerned, then custodial instruments are kind of where you're at because it's very fast to do. It's extremely easy. There really isn't much technology, and everything is already able to do it. So whether that's custodial BTC or whatever, unless you're in a very group of people who are able to create cross-chain products directly, because that is their product. It's one of us here, and I think that's a good way to do it.
There are 4 basic strategies for cross-chain communication, and we've touched on most of them so far. Peace Relay, like Polkadot and Cosmos, are chain state tracking. You keep track of every state update on your own chain via commitments. For example, BTC Relay is deployed on Ethereum today and actually halted 6 months ago because nobody bothers to relay anything. I use stateless SPV, which is I will show you enough work to convince you that something happened on another chain. I think we've already covered my feelings on atomic swaps-based constructions. And the fourth is what Kyber is using to wrap Bitcoin, which is the federated model, or the trusted model. I come from the Bitcoin world, and over there we have a saying, which is, not your keys, not your Bitcoins. So for me, like, I chose the stateless SPV model because it's the cheapest, the most flexible, and it keeps, it keeps the users in control of their own money.
And the trade-off there is that it's probabilistic, right? Because you have some sort of
It's not probabilistic, it's actually that there's a economic security. So we're just verifying like a chunk of headers and that they have enough proof of work on them. So trade-off here number one, you can't use it with proof of stake chains. Proof of stake is subjective, proof of work is objective. So this just doesn't even work with EOS. You can throw it out. The trade-off here is that we're only looking at a few headers, so we only see the work in those headers. We don't see like the full Bitcoin chain, we just see like a little slice of it, and we have to decide how confident we are in that slice. The way we do this is we set an economic security parameter. We say, I'll accept headers if someone spent at least $500,000 to make them. If you spend $500,000 making Bitcoin headers, that means you've lost probably $500,000 of Bitcoin revenue that you could have got from mining. And so you're not going to do that to cheat me out of $20. It's not probabilistic, it's that there's a security parameter.
Yeah, so I think, I really want like us to define like, what is blockchain, right? Like to us, right? If we want to say that we could relay Bitcoin on Ethereum, then we want like all the smart contract will be able to use Bitcoin just like an ERC20 tokens or just like Ether on the Bitcoin network, so that a decentralized fund they could like keep that Bitcoin, or if you want to do something like lending or deposit it to the maker to borrow the data, then you could do it easily as well. Yeah, so I don't feel like atomic swap could help you with that though.
Atomic swaps almost certainly can't. When we're talking about like wrapped BTC or other things, we're really talking about a two-way pay. Something that you can convert Bitcoin into a token and then that token back into a Bitcoin. So far, the only model that can give you that with Bitcoin in real life is the trusted model. Some trusted federation holding onto your Bitcoin for you and guaranteeing those tokens. There's no evidence that it will be possible to do that with some other model in the near future with Bitcoin.
I actually wanted to go back to your security parameter, because as you were talking, I was interested. Does that mean there's some sort of ceiling, theoretical ceiling, as to how big you could get? Because at some point that there would be an actual incentive to attack.
Well,
As an irrational actor.
you can always have irrational actors, but irrational actors don't tend to hang on to mountains of ASICs very long.
Well, they're cheap these days, from what I hear.
They're cheap, but they're not that cheap. The hash rate's only fallen like 15–20%, really. But there is an upper limit. You wouldn't want to do this for $10 million without taking a lot of headers and a lot of work. But there's actually another factor that works in our favor with these. If I make you provide 6 headers to me to prove something to me, assuming you have not enough hash rate to 51% attack Bitcoin, it takes you a very long time to make those. If you have 10% of Bitcoin's hash rate, it takes you, for 6 headers, 10 hours to make. And meanwhile, the Bitcoin chain is making a header every 10 minutes. So someone else is going to beat you to the punch here, just because they have the main chain working for them. So it's a combination of the dollar value of that work and the amount of time it would take an attacker to make those headers.
So then I guess I ask some challenges to James. I'll come back to you. What are your challenges as you move towards doing cross-chain things right now?
Well, I think that the challenges are that the ecosystem is so undeveloped, right? I mean, there's very little example of code or working models in the systems that exist right now. Atomic swaps are very good for certain applications, very specific applications. But when you start talking about general fungibility or being able to, signal across contracts or move data between chains, very, very limited options are available, and most of them end up being kind of custom now, where there's some intermediary that you're trusting to facilitate this process, whether there's kind of an economic incentive or otherwise, that's also very limited, right? It's not really the threshold. So my challenges are mostly structural. And how do you build into these systems instead of replacing the systems, right? So there's too much kind of infrastructure already built to go and fix some of these fundamental issues, right? We kind of have to figure out how we can leverage the commonalities to build that infrastructure.
So I think the main challenge for like trustless cross-chain, right, is that like we have just so many blockchains out there, and like people just keep creating new ones.
Permissionless environment.
Yeah, so basically like when we created Peace Relay, we were like, okay, any blockchain who support Ethereum EVM, we could work with them, right? And then we have like yours, we have like Silica, we have Tron, and all new blockchains, and Peace Relay basically like is obsolete, right?
So I guess my next question will be, what are some of your favorite cross-chain things out there besides your own? Everybody goes straight from the atomic swaps, I know.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I like his, it's pretty good.
I mean, there's not that many out there running.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what else is running actually, like, really working? Not really very much. There's some, atomic swaps, I think, they work. Now, for certain kinds of applications, like, you already have one token on one network and a token on the other network, and it's fine. If you have a situation where you have one token on one network and it doesn't exist on the other network, then you're out of luck. What are you going to do? And I think that's kind of a fundamental problem right now with atomic swaps, right? You kind of require this other party to deal with. There isn't a way of kind of signaling it out to another intermediary, not intermediary, but another person you're working with, right, to do the swap. So, yeah, that's probably my view right now. I'm trying to think what else is particularly viable.
And I guess it doesn't have to be live either. We'll expand the universe.
Speaking of that, I think like 2-3 years ago there was a solution that basically oblivious atomic swap. So the idea is like you could swap, like you could still do atomic swap, but people don't know like who you do, the swap with, right? Because the usual atomic swap is that we have to share some common hash, and people would link the activities between the two parties. But that solution was very nice, and like they could hide all the patterns.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do private atomic swaps with zero knowledge proofs. But what I'm more excited about is the layer 2 stuff, which we haven't even talked about at all. So Lightning, for example, has demonstrated layer 2 on Lightning Bitcoin for Litecoin exchange via Lightning atomic swap. I think a lot of the day-to-day stuff is going to end up on layer 2 in the long run. We just had a great panel on layer 2.
So that sort of leads into my next question, which is, where do you see the future of cross-chaining things in the next 18 months? What goes live? What's amazing?
Well, this is my full-time job, so I hope we're going to see a lot more of Sima in the next 18 months.
WBTC is live, I guess, next month.
Yeah, I think for custodial and atomic swaps, we have kind of a clear path for it. I think for everything else, it's up in the air. We'll probably see about as much progress in the next 18 months as we saw in the last 18 months. So what I expect.
And so I guess, when will cross-chain transactions make the most sense? When we have dedicated interoperability chains? When we have dedicated interoperability chains?
I think that will happen because it's one of the clearest paths forward for doing interoperability. I think one of the things I put up earlier, the fact that this is like a chain every day, and there isn't a common standard by which they're created, basically makes the interoperability nightmare larger and larger and larger as every day goes by. And I think the last panel mentioned, we talked about the development of these things versus the internet and things like that. And there are some pretty fundamental differences in terms of the structure, right? Where when you start with a common structure and everyone's kind of based on that structure, and you have like a layered stack, you're in a much better position when everyone is kind of inventing their own systems that work, very differently for the most part. And so the challenges are getting larger and larger. So what I'd like to see, I think, is some of the main chains come together and actually help how to do this and put in the structures necessary to make it easier. Because kind of without those common structures, it's going to be extremely difficult.
So I think that all sounds really cool, but I don't think anybody actually wants that. Atomic swaps have been possible and there have been implementations for years, and nobody uses them. When we're talking about cross-chain communications, it's unclear what the use case is for any of this. We have Cosmos talking about peg zones and Polkadot talking about this meta chain layer. But the tools that exist for this today are not being used. The Decred project wrote a great atomic swap library that covers something like 10, 15 different chains, and nobody uses it. I think that we should be focusing on the one pair that matters in crypto, which is Ether to Bitcoin. It's the only pair that gets active trading compared to normal financial markets. Everything else is tiny and kind of pointless, and judging from the last 5 years, 90% of it's going to die in the next 5 years. When I got into crypto, there was something called Aurora Coin, which was airdropped to everybody in Iceland. Has anyone in the room heard of Aurora Coin? Yeah, like 5 people here? Great. Everything's going to die, and I'm not going to bother supporting these tiny chains.
So that's the rest of my questions. Are there any questions that you wanted me to ask you? Anything that you want to say before I open it up to audience questions?
Maybe I should stop talking.
No, the more the better. No? Okay. We are close to time, but we do have time for some questions. If anybody has the burning cross-chain interoperability atomic swap question. Yes.
Hey James, what's up? With regards to the use case of atomic swaps, do you ever envision a future, say, where if you are able to actually tokenize ownership of, say, a car, where you could do an atomic swap to ensure that the trade of the buyer and seller swap the asset honestly, without worrying about one kind of party not sending the other item? You could envision it working already with something that works as innovation itself, like a ticket to a show where the asset could literally be the token itself. So I wonder if you could comment more on potential use cases there.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely possible. The downsides of atomic swaps are they take 6 hours of both people being online the entire time. And we have to negotiate this entirely in advance. And we have to lose liquidity for the duration. And I get a free option. And you control me by making me lose liquidity when you don't. So obviously this is a lot of downsides. What we need is a transaction that is large, valuable, and indivisible. And so I think a car is a great example of that. For trading a car, if we can do that completely trustlessly, I think it's probably worth a few hours of being online. I'm not sure where it fits in cryptocurrency, but if there's actually a tokenized car out there, maybe it would be a good fit.
Sorry, can I just ask? So speaking of like the trading use case for atomic swap, right? Many people think that in atomic swap, the first party who signed is basically giving the free option to the other party. That's why for the trading use case, it's not really working. What do you think of that?
So the free option is a problem, but it's solvable. I think that the real reason this doesn't work for trading is there's actually multiple steps of free option. And there's an opportunity for you to liquidity troll me. Once I've funded, if you don't, then I lose liquidity and you lose nothing. So we have to go through multiple rounds of communication to negotiate the swap. And then we have to go through 2 rounds of blockchain confirmation for setup, and then another 2 for teardown. So in the best case scenario, this is going to last upwards of 4 hours. And if you have a single trade that takes 4 hours to do, like why are you even trading? I can go on Coinbase and trade in like 2 seconds. I'm not going to stick around online for 4 hours and risk losing my coins. I think it's not just the free option. I think there are a lot of problems preventing this from being used.
So I have a slightly different question. So in terms of cross-chain, I mean, I also envision in the future, because now I see a lot of cross-chain mainly focus on interoperability of the states of asset across the chain. Do you think that is a need, or there's a future for cross-chain when we try to improve each other's consensus mechanism by kind of, let's say, I have a really good project, there's a good protocol, but I have too few miners, can we actually have a cross-chain mechanism that's looking more at improving the overall consensus, by packing on the bigger pool of miners, so not looking so much at the states or asset transfer?
So this has actually been done in practice for the last 5 or 6 years. It's called merge mining, and it's used by a lot of the smaller proof of work coins. It essentially allows miners on different chains to, it essentially allows a minority chain to be secured by the proof of work of a larger chain. So in that sense, yeah, I think we can definitely do that. One of the things that we work on at Summa is solving Ethereum's transaction ordering issues using Bitcoin's UTXO model. So we run bi-weekly auctions that use Bitcoin's consensus to order Ethereum transactions. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities to basically arbitrage consensus models like that. And I don't know what most of them are yet.
All right, great. Well, we have 30 seconds left, so if somebody has a really, really burning quick question, we should ask it afterwards. Let's stop for a minute.
Well, thank you everybody for the time. So now it's probably time for a break and get some refreshment outside. And we will regroup with the stream for 2 workshops happening in about 20 minutes time. Thank you.
Hey guys, just some additional logistics notes. While you're moving out, I'm not stopping you. Just go on. If you're looking for a washroom, you can access that either from, as you mentioned, the left-hand side or right-hand side out of the building, and you have to turn towards that direction, and you will see actually a door with the mark on the restroom. That's where you can access. For those who need to smoke, please don't do so in this building. It's against the law in Singapore for our international guests especially. There is a designated smoking area that's outside the building. Please enjoy yourself there. Okay? And we actually have prepared some pretty localized snacks for the refreshment tea. You can actually see them right outside the building. Turn to your left after you get out of the metro, turn to your right after the building, and you'll see white tables there and food stations there. See you in half an hour. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I know everybody wants, I know mine, I know.
So like I haven't told you like the yes.
Derivatives as a social media.
The second, yeah, exactly. Yes, of course. But making it even more satiric is that the animal farm. Oh, yes, I think the animal farm is a better version of it than the and now, yes. So actually, yeah, so basically, it's just a farm one social game that came out of the financial crisis 10 years ago, and that defined the so basically, yeah. So basically, like, it's think about how one way to make money and everything else. It's not a but yeah, not just think about any kind of stuff, how much you actually like, buy years, buy usage and everything, that even now, like, yeah, I don't really buy like trading, because I think such a cross big problem aside from that. It's you get your already. So basically, I am that's but in the game itself, so again, I don't think but it's going to but the like where your results are that's the Because that's